Hey there. This is just a quick video to show how to install Red Hat onto a VirtualBox VM. So, you need to open up VirtualBox. Once you've opened up VirtualBox, go ahead and create a new VM. Select Linux and then Red Hat. Usually it's good to name it with either a name that's about what it's doing or the system it's using. Specifically here we're using Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7. Typically 1 gig of memory is just fine. And you'll want to create a virtual hard disk. Typically 8 gigabytes is actually a little larger than you'll need, especially for a small dev environment. But also the dynamic allocation makes it so it doesn't take up 8 gigs until it actually uses 8 gigs. So go ahead and select dynamically allocated. And it'll create a small VM file that acts as your hard disk. Okay, and so now that we've got this created, you need to go ahead and select the CD we're going to use to install Red Hat. So if you click Settings, and here we are in General, you go down to Storage, and then under the IDE controller, click the little CD icon, and then right next to IDE Secondary Master, go ahead and click the CD icon. You'll be able to choose a specific virtual optical disk file. And then in my downloads, I have previously downloaded a copy of CentOS 7 Minimal, but you can also use the full live CD or a DVD or the Everything disk if you wanted to download that one. Either way, they're all very similar in how they install. This is the Minimal, so it'll be the least amount of items to install. Once you've selected the disk, you can go ahead and click Start. And now you've got your VirtualBox starting up. CentOS will ask whether you want to test the media or install it. There's also a method to get into the text installer, but that's for a different video. And then once you select install, it'll eventually come up with a configuration screen. And then once the install comes up, you'll be able to select your language. I'm of course going to select English United States, since that's my locale. Click Continue. Now unfortunately on VirtualBox, Red Hat has a GUI that tends to be a little sluggish, but that's okay. We're not going to be using the GUI very much beyond the install. It's interesting that the Red Hat 7 defaults to a GUI install. You would expect that Red Hat would keep with their usual text install. Anyway, so you do have to select the hard drive by clicking the hard drive icon and then clicking the one hard drive that you did create when creating the virtual machine, and then click Done. And that's really all you have to do. You can set a root password, and it lets you do that while you're installing, so it's worth doing while you're waiting. So go ahead and click for root password and go ahead and type in. I'm using root here. It's always a good idea to set a password even if you don't expect to use it. Preferably you do want to set a slightly complex password, though personally I tend to find that longer passwords are more easy to deal with than complex passwords. And you can also make a user. So and we're not going to make that administrator, so password's going to be the same as the username, _user. And so that user's created. There we go. And this is just now. You have to wait to the now all you have to do is wait till the end, and then you'll have a working copy of Red Hat that you can log into and begin your development or your practice on whatever you may be using Red Hat for. And as you can see, Red Hat's now finally finishing up the post-installation tasks. Usually the whole install takes about 5 minutes. It's probably a little longer than that. It's easy enough to get a cup of coffee or something. And if you need to, you can do this just once, and once you've made a VM file or a VDI file, you can transport that file to any other system that uses similar virtual technology. So all you have to do is transfer the hard drive and or clone it. So you don't have to do this install every time unless you really want to. I wouldn't suggest that you do so either. There's better ways to handle it. You can also use something like Vagrant to provide a similar image every time. Or if you're running on a system that's not Windows, you can use Docker to create similar containers to standardize your virtual environments. And now that Red Hat has finally completed installation, just click Reboot. And it'll reboot your virtual machine. And then it will auto-select the non-safe mode version. And once the login screen comes up, you can go ahead and log in. We're going to log in here as root. Typically, the method of handling things for a lot of Red Hat is to log in as root and do the things required. Definitely a difference between Red Hat and Ubuntu's best practices. However, again, this is designed for a virtual machine or development environment, and so security is going to be handled by the hypervisor rather than the virtual machine, typically. And that's it. You've got a working copy of Red Hat 7 running on your PC. And look out for the next video where we talk about how to install Django.